all, welcome to this edition of Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. The gloves are off when it comes between the government of India and Twitter. Twitter, the government says, has failed to comply with the new guidelines for social media intermediaries. In fact, the Cabinet Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad has taken to social media, which includes SKU and Twitter, to talk about this, where he has spoken about the numerous queries arising to whether Twitter is entitled to safe harbor provision. The simple fact of the matter is that Twitter has failed to comply with the intermediary guidelines that came into effect on 26th of May. Twitter was given multiple opportunities to comply with the same. However, it has deliberately chosen the path of non-compliance. The minister goes on to say, the culture of India varies like the large geography. In certain scenario, with the amplification of social media, even a small spark can cause a fire, especially with the menace of fake news. This was one of the objectives of bringing the intermediary guidelines. He goes on to write, it is perplexing that Twitter fails to address the grievances of users by refusing to set up processes as mandated by the law of the land. Additionally, it chooses the policy of flagging, manipulates media only when it suits its likes and dislikes. Indian companies, be it pharma, IT or others that go to business in USA or in other foreign countries, voluntarily follow the local laws. Then why are platforms like Twitter showing reluctance in following Indian laws designed to give voice to the victims of abuse and misabuse? I'm going to be discussing this and more with Dr. Mohandas Pai, who's joining us live right here on ET Now. What do you make of these developments? I don't think the minister could have been more categorical that Twitter has failed to comply with the guidelines. Therefore, it's perhaps losing the intermediary tag. And the immunity is, of course, the cornerstone of every social network's business model. Without that immunity, how can Twitter operate in India?
Absolutely. I agree with you that government has been too lenient on Twitter. Government has issued the regulation, asked for public comment, then issued it again, and asked people to comply. The great majority of companies complied. Only Twitter stood out for I don't know for what reason. Because Twitter should know that if they want to operate in any country, they should comply with the law. And if they don't comply with the law, they should be penalized or get no protection under the law. And I think I'm very surprised at their attitude in India, because they have been defiant all this while. In Germany, they immediately complied with the law. In their own country, they will do it. But here, I don't know who is advising them to do it. If they don't like the law, they can go to the court. They have an option. But to stand up and say we are not complying, will not do it, to be defiant, is unacceptable. And I don't know why the government was so soft on Twitter. It sends a very wrong message to people that if you don't comply, government will go on requesting you. Government should enforce the law, and that is it. So I think, we need to work under the rule of law for any company in any country. And in a democracy, you don't like the law, you can go to court. There is a remedy available for everybody. So I'm very surprised at the deviant behavior of Twitter.
Now, Twitter has put out a statement saying it has intentions to follow the guidelines, that it has will be appointing a interim chief compliance officer. The government says it has not received the names of any of the three designated officers who have to be full-time employees: chief grievance redressal officer, chief compliance officer, and chief nodal officer. Now, with what the minister has said, Mohandas Pai, does this mean that Twitter is open to criminal action, civil action for all that the users are posting on its platform?
Yes. Twitter will lose the protection of the law, which protected such a platform in case they comply with the regulations from anything published on their platform. Now they will be in the equal status of a publisher. And as a publisher, they'll be open to criminal and civil liabilities in the courts of law. I'm sure a lot of people will file criminal complaints for everything. For example, yesterday there was a fake news that has blown up out of context, and Twitter magnified that. Because Twitter is a neutral platform, was a neutral platform, which allowed everybody to tweet. And Twitter can only operate in case they have protection as a platform and not as a publisher. Now, by not complying the regulation, they lose that kind of protection, and they'll be open to suits, and they'll be open to criminal and civil prosecution, and they have to take it on the chin. I mean, this has to be a very good, example of how laws can be enforced in this country. And I think it's extremely important. And there are many, many countries globally which are watching what India does. And I think India has done very well to have a law, because please remember, the law is there to protect you and me, the consumers of this country. The government has an obligation, the constitution, to protect the rights of citizens. And citizens' rights are not protected by a private company which operates as a monopoly and which does what it wants without having grievance redressal and takes tyrannical action. And that has been the basic issue about Twitter. Now I think government has to enforce the law and protect us. And I think if they don't comply, that is it. I mean, I'm very happy that this unnecessary and very rigid attitude of Twitter is being shown for what it is.
Now, in the last couple of days, this entire controversy, of course, has been boiling up. We understand that the Uttar Pradesh government, for example, in an FIR has already named Twitter. Mohandas Pai, this is unfair then, right, to the employees of Twitter?
No. I mean, what is fair and what is not fair is a matter of law, because you and I cannot decide what is fair and what is not fair, right? Because we are not the enforcer of law. I mean, what is fair and what is not fair will be decided by the courts. Now, the Uttar Pradesh government has filed criminal complaints against Twitter and a variety of people for showing fake news. Some of them, I think, withdrew their tweet. One particular, news verification site gave a fake news, and then they withdrew it. It's good they've withdrawn it, because I think people have to investigate before they lend their name to make sure the tweet is right. And in this case, Twitter has not acted against all those people who propagated that fake tweet, despite coming to know about it. So I guess, governments will do it. And also, Twitter is opening itself up for such action by not complying with the law. If they're complying with the law, they always have the protection to say, we are not responsible for this. This is done by somebody. Look at the law protects us. Now they lost that. And this is going to happen again and again and again. Because being a platform, anybody can put up what they want. And for Twitter to pull it down or do something, it takes time. Somebody has to complain, somebody has to monitor, it takes time. In the meantime, the damage will be done. And for the damage, the only protection they have is the law, which says very clearly that you are not a publisher, so you're not responsible for anything that comes on the platform. Now, if they lose that because of deviant action, they've got only themselves to blame.
The point I was trying to basically arise was that this has been the global policy of Twitter, but employees who work with Twitter in India, unfortunately, will now be, they can be named in these FIRs. They will also be personally called by the police, may have to go to courts. That's the point I was trying to raise, that it's, for an employee, it may not be fair.
No. On employees, definitely it's not fair, because earlier too, some people had put cases on employees, and I told those people that employees should not have to face these consequences because they're employees. And more so in case of these MNCs, they're not responsible for any global policy. It's all decided in a black box somewhere in SFO or somewhere else. These people only carry it out, and they have no choice. They don't do anything, etc., etc., etc. So I think, yes, what you say is right, is unfair on the poor employees, but the company could have protected their employees by following the law, right? The companies can follow the law to protect the employees. Then they put their employees up for prosecution by not complying with the law. And that is very, very wrong. I hope some of the employees sue Twitter for any damages or anything that happens to them. And certainly, I think employees should not be hauled up or should face any action for things done by Twitter and for Twitter not complying, except the CEO. Because the CEO is responsible for the company here. I mean, the CEO is the chief compliance officer, right? Everything stopped there. He should be hauled up. He should be responsible, not any other employees. Because if the CEO finds that the company is not complying and his note is going to come on his head, he should step down. Otherwise, he'll not be protected.
So let's see how this one progresses. For now, Twitter losing its immunity. It is criminally, civilly liable now for all content that is being posted by millions and millions of users right here in the country. Mohandas Pai, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.